I taught my bird to whistle like a referee. I can make a free throw when I'm down on one knee. I've been a fan of basketball since I was 5. Now I am a fan of HoopSpeak Live. Hilarious analysis, a mystifying trope. An angel with a cudgel breaking bubbles of soap. Like honeybees buzzing around a hive. Everybody buzzing about HoopSpeak Live.
Hey, welcome to HoopSpeak Live. I'm your host, Beckley Mason, coming to you from Bristol, Connecticut. I'm up at ESPN today. With me is Zach Harper. We got no Ethan today, but it is our 100th show, so we are pretty excited. We're going to keep it 100 for this entire episode. That's what we need you to know right now, is that we are going to keep it 100. Today's show, however, is brought to you by Andrew Bynum's Half Off Hairstyles. Bynum not keeping it 100 these days, at least with the hair. He had to hop out and give his interview, which I can understand because it reportedly takes a long time to get your braids done like that. Zach, how long did it take when you were in Cabo and you got your braids done?
God, it was a good 4.5 hours, I would say, at least. I mean, that was just, you're on vacation, so you don't worry about getting back out to a nice, office meeting or a luncheon that you have to get to. So I had them take a little bit longer, but it was 4.5 hours.
Nice, yeah, and that was that's almost as long as that henna tattoo that you had on your lower back stayed. Speaking of party time, you were in Houston for All-Star Weekend, your first trip to the Dirty and your first trip to All-Star. What'd you make of it?
I had a blast, for one. It was a lot of fun. I don't know how much work I got done as opposed to how much work was expected of me to get done, but I haven't had any hey, we need to talk when you get a minute. So that's good. It was the fastest long weekend of my life. Everything is thrown at you, especially when you're trying to do media availability and get to as many events as possible so that you can, be there in case anybody says a stupid quote or something alarming. So that was kind of hard. There was a certain point of media availability where I was trying to figure out who was the next guy I was going to go to in the room, and I literally just did a full spin and ended up right where I was. I was right at Kobe Bryant, trying to get through the scrum to him, and I just ended up trying to fight back in it instead of going to somebody else. The highlight of the weekend, though, was during the end of availability for the West All-Stars, James Harden's the only one still speaking at his table, and Kevin Durant walks by and says, "Hurry up, cupcake," and then James Harden left. That's all it took.
Yeah, I think that it's funny when you're at those big events or you're in any media scrum, you're really just hoping for a verbal nip slip of someone please say something that's somewhat scandalous that then I can go write about. I'm curious who the MVP media-wise for you there in terms of having funny things to say in the halls and also perhaps party animals after hours at All-Star.
Well, a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Charlie Widows, was
yes.
A pleasure to be around. I hung out with him pretty much the entire weekend, and he was just fantastic. I'm sure you've seen this. Maybe he's even done it because of things you said, but every once in a while, someone will say something stupid around him, and he does the look away, almost like he's on an NBC comedy show in which they do that single camera. Yeah, he gives the look what did that guy just say? He did that a lot this weekend. He was fantastic. It's cool seeing the Basketball Jones guys out in an environment like this because everyone who isn't a player, when these guys walk by, it's like a rock group just stepped through the room. Everyone kind of oh my God, that's them. Even beat writers, doesn't matter who. These guys walk through the room and you know it. And I think they're kind of oblivious to that, which is even cooler.
Well, they are Canadian, so you can never trust them. Okay, so in terms of actual events, what did you take away? I mean, when you're at a game or you're at an event and players are going half speed, what do you get out of that being there live?
I think that the biggest thing I got out of that was, I think by not being there, you kind of lose perspective on how ridiculous the dunks are. Like on TV, everything is at the same angle, and you can see a powerful dunk, but you don't really feel it. Like in the arena, you kind of there's like just this reverb of energy that goes across when there's a big powerful dunk in the dunk contest or in the All-Star game. Like I thought a lot of Blake's stuff was impressive. I thought a lot of Kevin Durant stuff was impressive during the All-Star game. But on TV, when I saw the replay, I was like, it didn't look that great. So I think that's the big thing, and especially with the dunk contest. By the time Terrence Ross threw down that 360 behind the back dunk, it kind of lost its luster on the replay on TV. But in the arena, you still felt it. Like that was still an incredible dunk, even on the 5th or 6th try.
Yeah, I think there's this dunk contest crystallized something for me, which is that a lot of times there's this degree of difficulty that people go for, and if they pull it off, it's going to be crazy. Or even in the case of Jeremy Evans getting 2 balls, it's like it's like not that visually impressive. What everyone I think really just wants to see is someone jump as high as they can, and then do like one thing coolly in the air and like have a lot of grace and then a powerful finish. And like that's it. You don't have to reinvent everything. I mean, I thought even like Fareed's in the rookie contest where he was swinging it down and dunking hard. It's like that's great. This is exciting to me. I don't like to watch too many like weird kinks in the action.
Right. Yeah, and that was the thing about Eric Bledsoe's second dunk. That was just incredible. Like he just went up and did this incredible Jason Richardson dunk and like violently twitched. Like I don't know how he doesn't have back problems after that, because he really, I mean, it wrenched my back when he did it. So I figured his back was just destroyed. But seeing that dunk in person, and I had a cool angle because it was on the opposite end of the court, so you can really see the whole thing unfold without like the backboard blocking or anything. That was something to see in person.
I don't know if you could see this on the camera or if you on that screen, which everyone was tweeting about being like incredible. But and I want you to describe that in a second. But Terrence Ross, so he won the dunk contest, but he was like 4 inches away from not only not winning the dunk contest, but like actually killing that little kid. I could not believe that child was participating. For those of you who don't remember, he did an East Bay funk dunk where he went between his legs and dunked it, and he did it over like a 9-year-old, which visually not the most impressive to begin with, but then also like it's not Mark Eaton, man. This is like very dangerous. That child's head is precious, and like his knee was driving up for the dunk and missed it by like this much. It was terrifying on camera.
Yeah, not just a kid. That's the CEO of Twitter's kid. Like that kid's got money behind him. That kid's got a team of lawyers ready to destroy Terrence Ross. That's a serious kid. That like 9-year-old you, 9-year-old me, we get hit in the back of the head with a knee. No one does anything. My parents are just like, well, that sucked. But that kid, stuff happens.
Are you saying that you got kicked in the head by a horse, and this is why you are how you are today?
No, it wasn't just one horse.
Working the stables as a young man.
In the suburbs of Sacramento, back where the stables are.
Nice. So the screen apparently was awesome. Was it like, I don't know, what was so great about it? I didn't come across over Twitter like why this mattered.
Yeah, it's just because it spans so much of the court. I mean, I'm guessing in relative terms, it's like the screen. I mean, it was modeled after the screen with the new Cowboys Stadium. That ranges 60 yards, so in comparison to that, it's not as impressive. But here, it's a good 2/3 of the court.
Right.
And it's not just that, but on the ends, they have screens on the ends, so it's like this weird capital I shape. I'm guessing if you look at it from the bottom, but it's just this. It's not only a big screen, but the clarity on it was incredible. I mean, the 2 arenas I've mainly been to in my short and probably will be short basketball covering career have been Arco Arena and the Target Center. Arco Arena, I'm pretty sure they just have a 19-inch Toshiba up there from 1988. And with Target Center, it's a decent scoreboard, but it's still pretty outdated. That thing's, I don't know, at least a decade or two old, and so it just doesn't have the same technology as today. That screen is unbelievably clear. Like if you had a shot of an aquarium up there, I'd think, wow, how did they get an ocean to hang in the air like that? Like it's just that clear.
So who is the MVP of the media game? Which is what everyone who's tuned in wants to know right now is who amongst the media was balling. Can you give me a scouting report for Sloan?
Well, here's the problem. There was the game that had many media members for this Jordan-sponsored media game.
Okay.
If you were someone like myself, who is not that popular and not that well revered, you don't get into that game. So we held our own game. We took to an outside court near the arena, and we got destroyed by the locals there for quite a short while. There was a guy who looked like Rudy Gay and played like Rudy Gay, and he was the MVP of that game. Once they cleared out, we got our own game. I would say it was either Andrew McNeil or Charlie Widows. Like both of them played pretty well. I would say it was myself. I passed incredibly at that point. However, there was a play where Charlie Widows was cutting from the weak side. I slung a pass, maybe a little Rondo style, kind of from the hip,
Sure.
Off the table. But it happened right as Andrew McNeil was coming to set a screen for me. So it was about 2 feet away from his head, and I just hit him right off the side of the head and it went out of bounds. So I would have said myself up until that point, but I had poor recognition.
That's what Andrew McNeil gets for trying to set a screen for you instead of just screaming for the ball. If you don't know, Andrew McNeil is like 6'8" and can make threes, which like in pickup is a pretty big deal. Who is the joking Noah of the pickup game? Like who is just playing way too hard? And then can you just describe how fun it was to see Noah just like going crazy out there?
Oh, well, the pickup game, there was a local who was wearing sunglasses throughout the entire game, who almost got in a fight with Charlie Widows over a call about a check ball. So I'd say that guy had the most intensity
Guy in the world. Widows is so sweet, but like he gets this switch flipped every once in a while. It's like really hilarious. Okay, go on,
Yeah,
Noah.
he just decided that he wasn't going to lose that argument, and it got a little heated. As for Noah, that guy is the only player who didn't know it was an all-star game and thought it was just a regular season game. Like he had so much intensity. He's complaining about calls constantly throughout the game, and I'm guessing the official just wanted to say it's an all-star game, calm down. And then when he got ISO'd out on with Chris Paul, that intensity, you could feel that intensity in the arena. Like he wanted that stop. And then there were several points. I don't know if it came across on TV, but there were several times in a half-court set where he didn't get the ball, but he would like go through his shooting motion anyway after the play was over from the spot he wanted to shoot from. It was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I heard him. You could hear him yelling, "Ice, ice," which is the Bulls' call to send pick and rolls low, which was awesome. Yeah, and you know what? Everyone's like, "Oh, why is he playing so hard?" I love a defender to go in there and play really hard because, like, it just makes all the offensive stuff that they end up doing look so much better because instead of, like one really good defender and like a bunch of guys behind him paying attention, it's one guy on an island really trying, which makes it really fun. All right, let's bring in our guest, another dude who is at All-Star and has been doing great work all season for Grantland. Friend of the program, back after a lengthy hiatus. He's been cleared with ESPN PR. He can talk to us. It is Zach Lowe.
I feel like the unfrozen caveman. This new format confuses me. I've not been on Spreecast before.
Welcome. Well, you look great, I must say. And I want to just dive right into it. One of the real interesting things to me, I haven't been able to come to a conclusion about it, is what should the Jazz do with their big men? This is I can turn it over, and one day I'm on Al Jefferson, one day I'm on Paul Millsap. It's tough for me.
Well, if they're going to keep one, they should definitely keep. If they were going to keep one long term, they should definitely keep Paul Millsap.
Right.
He will come a few $1 million cheaper than Al Jefferson, and he's just a better player. Dealing Jefferson this year, though, is a little tricky because they'd really have to reinvent their offense midstream, and that's a hard thing to do. He's the hub of everything they do on offense, but which makes me think if they do trade one, it will likely be Millsap, and that will be a bad decision. But we'll see what they do. But I like this. I mean, if they can get Eric Bledsoe, that's a different story, and I think that deal does make some sense for both teams. If you're going to cash out on Millsap, whether you're going to bring back Jefferson or not, that's exactly the kind of player that you want in return. But long term, I just don't see the appeal in paying Al Jefferson 12 to 16 million dollars a year. I don't see it. Especially when Paul Millsap's going to be there for 10 million and he's a better player.
Right.
Zach, one, great to see you again. I saw you, I don't know, it feels like hours ago. And two, I've never seen someone light up like you just talking about mascots, talking about inflatable mascots. That might have actually been the highlight of my weekend. Got brought up in several conversations with you around, and it's like me talking about Rubio. Like you light up, and I just want to know why the love for this part of the game.
I mean, is it something that really needs to be explained? Have you seen the mascots are really funny, and we live in this stress. And that's it. I mean, we live in this stressful world where it's like highly competitive, and you got to analyze the X's and O's, and you got to know the cap, and you got to do this, and then like sometimes you just want to see Stuff the Magic Dragon hit somebody with the streamers that come out of his snout. I mean, that's like sometimes you just want to see that.
So who is Stuff the Magic Dragon your favorite inflatable mascot, or can you choose?
Well, inflatable is really a subgenre all of its own. Stuff is an underrated overall mascot, really solid mascot. It's just hard to beat Benny the Bull in
A lot
all
of
forms.
personality.
And the inflatable Benny the Bull is like a mini Benny the Bull, who's like short and squat, and his jersey number is 1/2, I think, which I like.
Zach, back to actual basketball. You talked about how you didn't want to be the one to pay Al Jefferson, 12 to 16 million dollars. I feel the same way about Josh Smith in the sense that he hasn't had a true shooting percentage over 50 the last 2 seasons, and I'm worried that he'll never get it on offense, and maybe that won't make up for maybe the defense can't make up for that. Is it possible to salvage him? Is he just a change of scenery away from being the guy that Beckley really wants him to be?
Someone is going to give him the max, or if not the max, very close to it. I mean, he's going to get essentially the max. Um, to me, he's just a different player than Al Jefferson. I'd rather pay him near max money. I believe they're about the same age. Smith might be a year younger, but you know, if Al Jefferson is like an A- offensive player and a D defensive player, Josh Smith might be like a B+ and a B+, or a B and an A- or something like that. And I'm much more willing to sort of take a risk on that kind of player lifting his game to the level that we would like to see than I am of a guy who's just proven to be a huge liability on one end of the floor. I mean, Jefferson is a great example of a player who would have been an acceptable defensive player in the league as it was 15 years ago. And now, when his job is to try and contain Tony Parker on the pick and roll or something, he just can't do it. He can't even come close to doing it. Smith with go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, Smith brings passing. He brings, he can be a very good defender when he's motivated. He's a good rebounder. He can run the floor. He shoots jumpers too much. We all know that, and that, I don't know that will ever go away, other than I think in 2009 or 2010. I don't remember which season, when he sort of gave up shooting jumpers, and we all drooled over what he could be. But I wouldn't want to pay either of them the max, but he's going to get close to the max, and I'm more comfortable with that than Jefferson at anything like that level.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Jefferson is only 28. Doesn't it feel like not only has he been in the league for 15 years, but he's actually 55 years old? I mean, he's just got that Methuselah look. You don't have to convince me about Josh Smith. I am #1 Josh Smith apologist on record. One thing I heard that I thought was real interesting is, and I guess they sort of do this sometimes with him in Atlanta, but playing him at the 5. Do you think that he can be sort of like a sprint 5 in a way? And with the right pairing, look nice?
Yeah, I mean, I do think he could against the right opponent and with the right pairing. I mean, and on Atlanta, when they have him and Horford on the front line with sort of a true wing at the 3, I mean, he and Horford can switch assignments. They obviously prefer to Horford sort of start guarding the bigger opposing player and play the sort of center role on offense, but he can switch on the fly. Some guys are just going to be too big for him, but against the right kind of players, I think that could absolutely work. And conversely, he's played a lot of three in Atlanta, and that's a place you could put him, on teams that have better big guys. He's a versatile player like that.
Zach, what about your beloved Boston Celtics? They are either they are going to rebuild.
Anymore. No, hold on. We have to clear this up. Zach doesn't love anymore. His heart is frozen. He only loves mascots.
I've lost the Celtics fandom. It's something that the boss man and I argue about often. He can't understand how that happened, but
good for you.
I guess it there are some times when I feel it, but mostly it is dead. Mostly it's dead, and I'm a soulless NBA observer.
Wait, when do you feel it? Is it when KG does something awesome?
I'm thinking about actually writing on the moments. I've been encouraged to perhaps make that a column topic, so I will save it for that theoretical column. But there are very specific moments where my fandom comes out in ugly displays of immaturity.
So what do you think your formerly beloved team should do? Should they, convince KG to waive the no trade clause to the Clippers, or move Paul Pierce, or should they soldier through and pretend they've got a shot at this?
I mean, they should do what they did last year, which is search for a trade with Pierce at least that makes some sense. And if they don't find it, they don't find it. But they came close to dealing Pierce last year. They'll certainly look at stuff this season, and it's just hard to find a trade that is going to bring them back anything of value, especially since his contract ends after next year and is only like a third guaranteed. And it just depends what they can get. I mean, if they can get both DeAndre Jordan and Eric Bledsoe for KG, they should absolutely do that. But the Clippers don't want to give up both of those guys for him, so at least as of now. So is Bledsoe alone worth it? You got Rondo kicking around there with an ACL injury at the same position. It's a dicey question, but yeah, I mean, Danny Ainge is not a sentimental dude. I mean, people sort of portray it as like a battle between his heart and his brain, and it's not that at all. It's just his brain.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that there's a little bit of delusion about what a 37-year-old with 2 years on his contract is worth, and if you can get two young studs, then that is a deal that is very rare that you can get that in the NBA. I mean, look at what comparably like Nash got. Nash was basically got for nothing. Obviously, KG is a more valuable player, but sort of in that same issue. You've said that the Knicks, you think, are the top challenger to the Heat in the East. Why the Knicks and not the Pacers?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's like calling the Knicks the thinnest kid at fat camp.
Right. Which is a mean thing to do, by the way. You shouldn't do that.
Well, it is a mean thing to do. I was just using an expression. I don't know what's an equivalent. There are other expressions
already, Zach. I mean, give him a break.
There are other expressions that are like that, but that's always the one that comes to my mind first for some reason. Yeah. Why not the Pacers? I mean, the Pacers are like 25th in scoring, and we got to see what Danny Granger can do. But yeah, I mean, if Granger comes back and they can rejigger their rotation in ways that work, and they can play average offense, they would jump over the Knicks. The Knicks, to me, are the only team in the Eastern Conference that has shown for any length of time that they can be very good on both ends of the floor, other than Miami. Obviously they've got their own serious questions, which is why I don't really view any Eastern Conference team as a serious challenger to Miami. But the Knicks have been the only one that have really glimpsed a very high ceiling. And that at least merits mention. But yeah, right now it's hard to see anyone in the East really pushing Miami. But Indiana, they're a badass team. They're not scared of Miami. And we'll see what Granger can give them.
Speaking of Miami, it is a team that either they have an extra gear or LeBron James has the best gear, but there's something lately that you kind of, I don't know, maybe they're starting to pull things together and maybe the defense isn't, maybe not as bad as it was, or at least they just know when to turn on the defense and let it lapse in other parts of the game. Where do you see them right now? I mean, obviously they're top of the East, but do you think they do have that extra gear, or is it just LeBron?
Birdman!
Birdman, we'll see how many minutes Birdman is playing in the postseason. Maybe a little bit. I mean, I definitely think Miami has an extra gear. It isn't just LeBron, although a lot of it is just LeBron. It's Dwayne Wade paying attention. It's the lineups that they play and how long they play those lineups versus some of their
No!
months.
Oh, you're back. You're good.
Oh, what happened? What happened?
You had the circle of death momentarily, but you are back. You look great. Please continue.
Okay, yeah, I was just saying, yeah, they do have another gear. They're 11th in defensive efficiency now, which means over the last couple of months they've probably been, I don't know, 7th, 8th, and just the way they played against the Thunder, the way they played in the fourth quarter against the Lakers, and fourth quarters of other games that they dilly-dallied through. I mean, they clearly have another gear, and it isn't just LeBron, although a lot of it is. It's Dwayne Wade paying attention to detail, and it's Spoelstra tightening the rotation. I mean, and this is Hollinger, when he predicted the finals last year, essentially just said, look at the numbers. Bosh, Wade, LeBron, they're unbeatable. Those guys are going to play all the minutes. End of story. And I think to some degree that's still true.
Yeah. So the Spurs, again, have been rolling in the regular season, ripping off huge chunks of wins, like ridiculous streaks. They look more athletic. They're slightly anyway with the way some of the guys are playing. Is there anything they can do that can, I think, soothe guys like us who just say, I can't touch this team again? Every time they get in the playoffs, and then some team either out physical or out athletes, is a really cumbersome phrase, but is there anything they can do in the regular season where you would look at them and be like, okay, this is really different?
I mean, I think what they can do is what they've done. They've varied up their play calling a little bit on offense to throw some new wrinkles here or there. They've gradually thrown a little bit more responsibility to Kawhi Leonard and even Danny Green. They've tried to keep Ginobili healthy and rested because they're going to need him to be, something like Manu in peak form when they hit the Thunder or something like that. And they've really Splitter Duncan is a thing now, and that may be a game changer for them defensively. And defensively, they're a lot better this season than they have been. So, barring a trade. And I do think there's if there's a team that may just come out of nowhere with a trade and surprise us, I think it could be the Spurs. I don't think it will be, but I think they're a candidate. But other than that, they've done what they can do, and it's just a matter of, are they going to be healthy? And, even that Thunder series was a couple of breaks here or there from being a 7-game series or from being a Spurs win. So it's just, I would still consider them underdogs against the Thunder, but not big ones.
Yep. All right. Well, as we all know, the West is going to be a blast come playoff time. Thanks a lot for stopping by, man. It's good to have you back.
No problem. I'll see you guys soon.
All right. So that is Zach Lowe from Grantland, because, you're probably like, who is that guy? You can follow him on Twitter, Zach Lowe _NBA. No, not like the other Zach Lowe's out there. All right. We're going to go to some of our predictions for the second half of the year. Our second guest is Ben Golliver from SI. So stick around. He's going to be on in about 15 minutes or a little quicker. Our predictions. All right, my prediction starts. We had 3 for each person. Ethan is not going to be reading, obviously, because he's not here. But my first prediction, Zach, is that Rudy Gay will not make another game winner this season.
Oh, no. This Rudy Gay hatred has to go away. I don't know if it's because the guy who destroyed us on Sunday looked a lot and played a lot like him, or if it's just my overall appreciation for what he does on the court. I have embraced the gunner. I've embraced the shot jackers that aren't Monte Ellis. I've embraced them all. Rudy Gay is one of those guys. He's gonna hit another one. He's got one more in him.
That's bold, because there's only so many game winners a guy gets a shot at. He's already hit 2. It seems like it would be unlikely, but if the Raptors get in a close game, I'm sure he's going to be the one pulling the trigger. There's been some Rudy Gay heat on this show. I do want to say for the record, Rudy at the 4, make it happen. I will be behind that. Zach, what is your prediction?
Well, my prediction is that Derrick Rose is only going to play 10 games the rest of the season. Only 10. and they're all going to be playoff games. He's going to swoop in like a superhero opening night of the playoffs. He's going to come in there. He's going to play well. He'll be himself, and they'll last to the second round before they're out.
So they're going to get beaten. So you think they're like a 4 seed and they play Miami in the second round? Is this? Let's flesh out this prediction.
Yeah, I think that sounds right to me. I think that they end up around the 4 or the 5. They end up winning that first round, no matter who it's against, because 1, the Bulls can play defense, and 2, Derrick Rose as himself would be quite good. But then they have the peril of facing a Miami Heat team, as the great Zach Lowe just said, with that extra gear. LeBron with that extra gear will be too much for them.
Yeah, it'll be. I think I love that the extra gear is Wade paying attention, which is pretty true. I mean, it's just like tightening up details. Cooper Moorhead has written a lot about don't worry, like they're just screwing around. They're horsing around too much, and if they stop doing that, they'll be playing better. All right, I'm gonna read Ethan's prediction, which I don't even get this. He says we'll learn that Bynum's knee injury isn't real. I don't know what that implies. That he's just taking the year off to get a lot of heat in the Philadelphia media and experiment with hairstyles. But that is his prediction. My prediction is that New York will not have home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. The New York Knicks will be the 5th seed in the East.
So if your prediction and my prediction had a baby, that means the Bulls knocked the Knicks out in the first round.
They sweep them, I think, if it makes sense. If they play 10 games, right, wouldn't they it's probably a sweep or a 5-game series?
I would guess so. I was going to go 5-5, but if you want to go sweep in 6, I'm fine with that.
All right, so let me tell you about New York's schedule. They played 50 games, which is actually pretty low for the rest of the year. They've got a ton of road games. They got a ton of games back-to-back. They're an old team that has one of the biggest disparities home and away. So I don't think it lines up well for them. I think that they're only 2 games out of being in 5th seed now. So if they slip, if Brooklyn can keep it together, come on, nicknames. If Brooklyn can keep it together, which is also not a given. But really, the thing that I love about this prediction is that if they slip to the 5 seed, there's a great chance they will play the Nets. And if they play the Nets in that 4-5 seed, I think that would just be awesome for the NBA and awesome for me because I'll be down the street from Barclays.
Oh, I get it. Nicknames. That's clever. I just read.
I think your prediction's next, bud.
I knew Ethan was going to take a shot at me. He just can't let this go. Ethan was going to take a shot, so I'm going to take a shot at Ethan. He's been promoting this theory that free throws need to be out of the NBA. Like they just need to be gone. Like no, we don't want them anymore. That he thinks it would make for a better game. I'm going to say that Andre Drummond, throughout his injury rehab until he comes back for the rest of the season, is going to learn how to shoot free throws. He's going to be like a 65, 70% shooter. Not great, but good enough to where you're not going to hack him all the time. And that's going to make Ethan realize, oh, I don't have to protect my baby Drummond. I'm just going to let this free throw thing go because that's the only reason he could think that this possible idea has any merit is just save his precious Drummond.
Ethan's mother henning, his clucking over Drummond. I don't know if it's exactly related to this. I mean, I feel this, that I don't particularly love watching first quarter free throws. And I think that the game is better for fewer free throws. That being said, I think he's going to have a tough time getting free throws all the way out. I like maybe pointing the ball, 2 points automatically for intentional fouls on breakaways. Like, why do they have to shoot them? It's kind of dumb to me. Ethan's prediction is that, this is for you, Zach. Zach will write me a handwritten apology for predicting that John Wall will be better than Kyrie Irving. Ethan has a really good memory for when he's right.
Yeah, and here's the thing, is that if Wall was able to get himself away from the Wizards mentality and the Wizards organization and really capitalize on his potential through proper coaching, proper training, proper everything, good teammates, I think he would skyrocket up to the conversation with Kyrie. I mean, Kyrie's got a lot of holes in his game. The things he doesn't have holes in are incredible. He's really good. He's been probably a top 5 point guard this year just because his scoring is that good and his clutch scoring is that good. But John Wall, he's got a lot there that is yet to be tapped. And I think someone's going to tap that and make it more of an even conversation than Ethan will ever admit.
Well, we'll see. Wall is an interesting guy. When I was reading, so they had a lot of stuff on Popovich, and he was talking about what he likes to look for in players. And one of the things I thought was really interesting is, like, is he kind of a good conversationalist? Is he funny? Is he witty? And I thought that the idea of, like, looking for charm and wit as a conduit to understanding whether or not he's going to be a smart player and a creative player on the court was really interesting. And I've only interviewed John a few times, but he never has come off as, and very few NBA players do because they're just so not into talking to you. And that was, especially a couple years ago. But, does he have that sort of gregarious, point guardy, witty, head of the conversation personality? It's hard to tell from my vantage point.
Speaking of that, speaking of guys that don't want to talk to you, I asked Russell Westbrook at Media Day what he needed to learn, like what move on the court he needed to learn to become a better player and become an all-star. Like, was it a certain crossover, step back jumper, whatever? His answer, win. The move he needed to learn was win.
I think that's actually pretty accurate because a lot of what Russell Westbrook does is stuff that we would kill him for if the Thunder weren't winning. I mean, if he left a huddle to block a mascot shot, like that is lambasted and skewered by everybody except for he does it on the Thunder, so he gets away with it. Like a lot of Russell's game and the way he treats people in the locker room, etc., all falls under that rubric of stuff you get away with when you win. Matt Moore posted something to Twitter that basically sums up Zach Lowe's thoughts on the All-Star game. We're going to bring that up. Thank you, Matt. That is hilarious. And that's a fantastic picture, of course, Stuff the Magic Dragon in blow-up form. We're going to take a quick audience question here on the Knicks, which is from Quinn Andrews. Is it overstated how the Knicks rely too much on threes? I think so, yes. I think that teams that shoot a lot of threes are going to have a high variation, but, they're worth more. And they've got a lot of good three-point shooters. And when the Knicks shoot a lot of threes, it's usually a symptom of good offense because they don't have a ton of, besides Melo, have a lot of guys who shoot a ton off the dribble. So if they're shooting 35 threes, that's a good sign for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with that because, and I think, their three-point shooting has dipped a lot recently over the last month or two, but I think that was a product of Raymond Felton being out. Yes, he can take bad shots, but when he's running a pick and roll and then kicks it out, they move the ball around the perimeter so well that that's where you want them taking their threes. And I think it's just a matter of time when they have that ball movement, they'll get more open threes and they'll knock them down. They're not the Timberwolves.
Oh, the poor Timberwolves, who shoot so many threes. That's what's amazing, is they're so bad at it, but they shoot so many. And they're not good threes. I don't know why. Okay, we don't need to talk about this. I'm sorry, I saw your facial expression just became so dark. It was like a fog rolled in over your face.
Wait, let's let the fog ruminate for a little bit. They do take so many bad threes. 2 months ago, they were taking 4.5 open three-pointers a game. Last month, they took 2.4 open threes a game. That's how bad the shots have gotten. They're just bad shots now. All right, I'm over.
All right. Let's bring on our second guest, another friend of the program and a great writer over at Sports Illustrated, my man, Ben Golliver. And there you are with chubby Ray Felton. And that's got to be, I assume Bane photoshopped that. It looks like an actual chip.
No, that's legit.
No, how you doing, man?
That's from our family reunion. We're brothers from another mother, of course.
Okay, so you survived Houston, barely. Kevin Pelton had almost murdered you previously with his car. No. This time, okay, what happened?
Other way around. I almost murdered him. But okay. I did keep up my streak of 2 near-death experiences at 2 consecutive All-Star weekends. So, yeah, it was I shouldn't be let out in public, basically, is what we're learning here. I should just be chained physically to the computer, unfortunately. Yeah, no, it was one of those late nights. I mean, you know how it is when you leave an arena at like 1 o'clock, your mind's all over the place, and I just happened to walk out into the middle of the street, and the real problem was I forgot to take my headphones off after transcribing, which I don't do very often. So I had the noise-canceling headphones on, so obviously I couldn't hear any of the street noises. I was already looking at Twitter, which is a chronic problem. You know, tweeting while jaywalking is like, you know, probably my guiltiest pleasure. So you can add up what happened when you're trying to walk across, you know, one of the, you know, a 4-lane street in one of America's biggest cities. It was bad news, but thankfully I lived to tweet about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was I enjoyed seeing that because I knew that you were alive. In a former life, I was a traffic safety, did a little traffic safety writing, and I can tell you, distracted walking is an epidemic in America. So I'm glad you learned your lesson and made this HoopSpeak Live serve as a public service announcement and get people off the streets. All right, here's our litmus test for whether or not we can be friends. How do you feel about Josh Smith?
I'm not a big Josh Smith guy. Are you a big Josh Smith guy?
Yeah.
Wait.
Explain why.
What, so Zach's team Josh Smith, but you're not team, or you are team Josh Smith? Is that it?
No, I'm a big Josh Smith apologist. Zach Lowe came on. I think he's sort of on board, and you're not buying it.
No,
I'm not strongly anti-Josh Smith. I'm strongly anti-committing max money or near max money and trying to ask Josh Smith to be your guy. I think in certain situations, like your hometown Brooklyn Nets, I mean, if you're a team where you just don't care about your payroll, you don't care about really, you know, overpaying anyone, you're totally fine with overpaying above average and expecting those guys, you know, just to give you what they normally give you and not expecting them to carry you somewhere by themselves, then, you know, I have no problem with them. I'm not a huge fan of him coming out and saying, you know, basically I want $95 million and expecting people not to laugh immediately. But no, I mean, I think he brings a lot to the table. I mean, his skills at this point, he's been so consistent. I mean, that's one real aspect he probably doesn't get credit for, even though he's been moody and he has the up and downs with his coaches and the suspensions and all that stuff. I mean, his numbers over the last, like, 5 years are incredibly consistent. You know what you're going to get from him, and that counts for a lot in the NBA where a lot of guys really aren't that consistent. So, you know, from that standpoint, I give him credit. I just don't want to build my team around him, basically.
you know, Beckley put a comment in there. I mean, it's not Jennings. What about Brandon Jennings? He seems like a very Josh Smithian type figure when it comes to free agency. He's expecting big money. He's probably going to laugh at any like mid to not so big money offers. But what would you give him, and where do you think he might end up?
Well, here's my thing with Brandon Jennings and Josh Smith. You know, these are both Free Darko type players, right? And if we learned anything about the legacy of Free Darko is that they had the best, you know, taste in terms of picking out the coolest players to watch. But they're the players you want to watch from afar. You don't want them necessarily on your team. You don't want to necessarily have to watch them 80 times a year. You want to be able to pop in every once in a while on League Pass, watch them go off at some crazy 6-minute tangent of just incredible play on both ends. And then be able to turn them back off and flip to somebody else. I think that's kind of what we learn about those kinds of players. You know, the hit rate on the Free Darko guys in terms of being able to, you know, extrapolate to amazing Hall of Fame careers hasn't been great. So anyway, in terms of how much you pay Brandon Jennings, I mean, I think his floor has been set pretty carefully, right? I mean, I think he's at least in that $11 million per year range and up based on some of the other signings from this past, you know, his same class. So I think he's getting paid. Ultimately, I think Milwaukee is going to be the team to pay him. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they overpaid him. You know, the farther you get up towards the rookie max for a guy like him, I mean, you do start to hedge a little bit. But what else do they have going on right now? I mean, if I'm Milwaukee, I probably just pay to keep him, and I move Ellis if I have to. I mean, they've got some other young pieces there. You know, Larry Sanders, exclamation point, and everybody else. So I think he's going to end up back in Milwaukee unless he absolutely finds a way to totally make their life miserable. And I don't necessarily see that happening. I know there's been some of the early rumbles there. But to me, he's the kind of guy, he's going to be the guy for that franchise for the next 4 or 5 years. You know, get close to that rookie max, not all the way there, maybe a little bit more than some of the guys who took to stay early got, and then you've got your price.
Yeah, that's man, I have a tough time with Jennings. I want to love him, but it's like small guards who can't finish. They're troubling. Although you could also imagine him in, you know, playing more with Bano and shooters and not Monte, and you know, it's always, and he's still 23. I mean, he's super young. So Kevin Pelton did this article and was talking about what teams benefit from making a move at the deadline. And the teams that he kind of studied, and it came out that the teams that benefited most were teams that were expected to finish before the trade around 35 to 40 wins, would make a trade and get a little boost. Trailblazers fit that profile. Do you see them doing anything?
Well, their company line is that they're not going to do anything. The only guy who's really been in meaningful rumors has been J.J. Hickson. He's been basically in rumors all season long. So that would suggest they're almost in a sell mode as opposed to a buy mode. It's a strange situation, and you're actually getting a GM here in Neil O'Shea who's admitting he was wrong. You don't really hear that a lot around the NBA, but he's basically come out recently and said, hey, these guys are playing way better than I thought they were, almost suggesting he thought they were going to be closer to a bottom of the lottery type team, and that puts him in a quandary because it doesn't really make a ton of sense to be a buyer at this point, push yourself into that 8th seat, and then just get run out of the playoffs by the Spurs or the Thunder. I mean, what good does that necessarily do you? And they're trying to sort of rebuild here. They've already got some big salary commitments to Aldridge and to Batum, so their flexibility is sort of already questionable. Do you necessarily want to take on money at this point and set yourself up for even a tighter summer? So that's sort of what he's weighing. Personally, I'd be trying to sell off J.J. Hickson for anything that I could get. I don't think he's a long-term fit here as the 4. You're trying to keep Aldridge at your power forward position. You're trying to bring up a Myers Leonard at center or try to find another center in free agency. I just don't necessarily see the fit there. So I'd be trying to sell him off. I wouldn't be worried about making a playoff push, especially because, there's the other teams. I like the other teams in that same group, whether we're talking about the Utah Jazz, Houston Rockets, or Lakers. I kind of like them all, positioning-wise, better than the Blazers. I mean, the Blazers just came off a 1-5 road trip where they looked terrible on some nights. It's just not the kind of team you want to go into a postseason with. Because they're so young and they have no bench. So they've got to make big moves. I think they're planning to make those big moves in the summer in terms of probably adding, 3 or 4 quality rotation pieces, and that's probably going to be prohibitive in terms of, any moves they're going to make right now. So we'll see. I mean, it's never been a quieter trade deadline here since basically I've covered the team, because you had Kevin Pritchard who just loved to put out rumors, and loved to kind of get the fans excited. And then you had a situation where one year you're trading for Gerald Wallace, and next year you're trading away Gerald Wallace, and then you had last year's just giant insanity. So really, it's the quietest trade deadline in Portland in recent memory, and I'm actually kind of bored. So let's just start some trade rumors. Let's just start selling people off. But no, it's weird. I mean, since 2007, there hasn't been this quiet of a trade deadline season.
Speaking of the Blazers looking for a center in free agency, there have been a lot of worries around here in Minneapolis that they're going to throw big money at Nikola Pekovic, and because they'll have the cap room and they need a center, and that will force the Wolves to either match the big contract or let him go. Do you think Paul Allen's going to do anything like that just to spite the Timberwolves?
So explain to me this. Is there no filter between David Kahn's paranoia and the Minnesota media, or does it just go straight from his mind straight onto the paper?
Well, this has been more of a. I mean, there is no filter between David Kahn's paranoia. I will say that, but I don't know that so much through media as much as since the summer where they were having a pissing contest about Nicholas Batum, that it's been thought that Paul Allen just doesn't like the Minnesota Timberwolves because of the whole Martell Webster thing that really gotten stuck in his craw, and since then he's going to use that Paul Allen insanity to go after them.
Yeah, I mean it's weird. That's been a one-sided room that's like totally come out of Minnesota and really hasn't had a lot of legs here in Portland. I mean, I think the Blazers have an interesting question here. What is the ideal kind of center that you want to put next to LaMarcus Aldridge? Is it a bruiser like Pekovic, who's going to give you your numbers, who's going to be able to make teams respect him in a way maybe that J.J. Hickson doesn't? Is that the ideal fit? Or is small ball make more sense? Is Aldridge the ideal fit at center and you just finally get through to him that you need to surround him with shooters to be the best? Or do you have, a guy like Myers Leonard who's more of like a long rim protector who you can sort of develop into that role? I mean, that's a huge open question. Now, Aldridge has made it very clear what he wants. He wants a traditional 7-footer. He wants a Twin Towers. He wants the Greg Oden baby that he never got. And that's sort of what he's looking for. And so the big question going into the summer is, are they going to follow that Aldridge approach, or are they going to sort of have to hedge off that and maybe keep him a little bit less happy than he is? That's one thing to watch. Now, in terms of Pekovic specifically, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a solid fit. I think he's going to get a fair bit of money. I don't know. I mean, you guys know Pekovic better than I do, I think. I mean, do you consider him to be this guy that you're going to drastically overpay for and add to big contracts already to Aldridge and Batum? I mean, to me, the big question is if sort of that's your big three, because you've got Damian on your rookie deal, right? If that's the big three that you're paying, what's your ceiling as a franchise? I'm not sure how far that team actually goes in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that I think with Peck, like, you can be fine. He's become a decent enough defender. He's a very good offensive rebounder, and he can score in the post and hit free throws. Throwing big money at him isn't a terrible idea, but I don't know that it's the right idea.
Yeah, and the Blazers have this weirdly new constraint on their salary cap. I mean, part of it is that they're still paying off Brandon Roy on the max deal. They've got, they've been laying people off. I mean, they're not selling tickets like they were during the Brandon Roy era. They've talked pretty extensively about, not even approaching the luxury tax over the next couple of years. So you have this, thought in your head of Paul Allen as this guy who's sort of like Prokhorov, who's willing to spend any amount of money. And he has said that, he's willing to do that under the right conditions if they're going to be sort of a contending type team. But I just want to hear the pitch that says, hey, Pekovic is the guy who's going to put us over the top. He's the guy who's going to help us beat Oklahoma City. And you've already paid all this money to Nicholas Batum. And I still think ultimately, they paid more than they needed to because of the way the whole restricted free agency thing played out. If they had signed him early, they could have gotten him for cheaper. So, you've got these situations where you're paying all these guys 8-figure salaries already. Is he really the guy who's going to be able to put you over the top? That's a tough sell to make. I'm not sure, a new GM's going to be able to make that sell to Paul Allen, because Paul Allen has owned a team for, 20-plus years. I mean, he knows what it takes to put together a winner. I don't know.
Yeah, that's, I think – sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, going back to my original point, I mostly think that's just David Kahn's paranoia. I think there's going to be interest in Pekovic, but I don't see him being a guy who's sort of everyone's A-list target, right? I mean, I think he's down the notch a little bit. I think he's solid. Minnesota's season really hasn't helped a lot. I think if you've got teams that are sort of evaluating his importance, all sorts of craziness around him, and the fact that Minnesota hasn't done well, with him sort of in the lineup regularly, people think, hey, this guy can't carry a team, basically. Do I want to throw 8 figures at him?
Right. It's interesting. I think you're onto something. I think they're going to try to go with the sort of give him a Thiago splitter to pair with LaMarcus Aldridge, and then just stop playing terrible players. I mean, like, that's the biggest problem right now, is that the rotation just doesn't have enough good players in it. What do you think about Terry Stotts Coach of the Year?
I'd suggest anyone who believes that watch the road trip, the last road trip, because I mean they struggled to crack 50 points against the New Orleans Hornets. I mean, come on. I think Terry Stotts has done a great job. I think he's overachieved. I think he's found I think he's on to basically what you're saying, which is don't play crappy players. And I think his solution has been play my good players, and even play them if they're injured, and then convince them to play if they're injured, and then just do whatever I can to play my good players, regardless of any circumstances, 38 minutes or more. I mean, it's kind of a touchy subject for him. He doesn't like people saying that that's just kind of how he's done it. But in a way, I mean, he's kind of running a gimmick franchise here. He's got all these guys playing tons of minutes. He has no bench. He's been forced to do it. And the 5 guys that he does have who can play sort of reasonable basketball are okay. They're not bad. So, I think you're going to see them coming back to earth down the stretch. I think they're going to fall not maybe to where we thought at the beginning of the season, where I think we were predicting sort of high 20s, low 30s. I mean, they're going to beat that prediction, but I'm not sure they're going to beat it by all that much. So I don't think he's going to be a serious candidate in the Coach of the Year conversation. But I think his offense has been very fun to watch, especially compared to sort of recent vintages here in Portland. And he's gotten a great development from Nicholas Batum, who's kind of on that fringe all-star candidates list heading into next season, maybe being the kind of guy who could make his first-time appearance next year if things break right for him. And then Damian Lillard, he's gotten the most you could possibly get out of Damian Lillard. I mean, everyone wants to talk about Damian Lillard's poise, how NBA ready he was, and all of that. Those things are true. But still, the coaching goes a lot into that, because they're throwing all sorts of different defenses at him over the course of this season. Teams are walling him, double teaming, triple teaming him. I mean, they're really going after him in different ways. And he's been able to adjust fairly well on the fly to doing that. And he's also been able to not be a huge hindrance when he's had off shooting nights. There's been some nights where he shot them out of games, but I mean, his shooting percentages haven't been absolutely blowing you away like a Kyrie Irving, say. So for the fact that he's able to, not drag them down on his bad nights and help push them to wins on his good nights, a lot of that is coaching and kind of putting him in the right positions and letting him know what to expect. So, I mean, he definitely deserves his credit, but I'm not going to put him in the Coach of the Year race. I mean, I look at guys, there's just a list of guys, whether it's Craig Popovich, Mark Jackson's got a better story. They're kind of tailing off a little bit. I even think Mike Woodson should be in the conversation given how hot the Knicks started. I know you were talking down on the Knicks a little bit. We got to remember back to what expectations were for the Knicks back at, when they didn't have Jeremy Lin. I mean, people were just predicting doom and gloom. So for them to kind of come together as they did to start the season, I think he's got to be in there. And you can rattle down another list of names, I think, before you'd even get to Terry Stotts.
Speaking of Damian Lillard, is there anything about his game that concerns you moving forward? I mean, we know that he's a great scorer. He's a really, he's a solid point guard. He's got the poise and, big shot ability, if that's going to be a term now. But is there anything that you worry about heading forward that he might not overcome?
I love that question because I'm like the ultimate Lillard nitpicker. And actually, the last time I was on this, I remember going back and forth with Beckley, and my conclusion was, oh, sure, he might be the Rookie of the Year. That's not going to be good enough. And I think that's kind of the tactic I've taken with him because he has such big shoes to fill here. I mean, there's a situation developing where LaMarcus Aldridge at some point is going to have to decide if he wants to stay here or not, right? And whenever that happens, Lillard's going to be the guy. He's your franchise player. So you need him to be on that all-star level. Having him be like really above average isn't going to quite be good enough. He's done a very good job of sort of addressing his holes, and I think he's actually been a better playmaker than I expected. So from that aspect, I think he's above where I thought he would be at this point. The holes here are a lot to do with shot selection. He loves the threes and he loves the long twos, and he doesn't much care whether he's made them or missed them when he takes them. So he can get into a situation where he goes 4 for 18 and you just lose that game. And sometimes you like that, never-ending confidence, but other times you just wish, hey, man, you need to get to the free throw line, you need to get to the basket, and you need to be just more aggressive off the dribble and really attack the defense more than maybe he has at times this season. So that's one thing. The fact that he's not really an above-the-rim finisher is going to be another limiting factor. He's going to maybe have to get a little bit stronger than he is to be able to take some of that contact around the rim, because I do think sometimes he's mentally holding himself back from some driving attempts, especially if he has a 1 or 2 maybe early in a game where he's not finishing them, because he knows he can always get the high-quality mid-range jump shot or the high-quality three-point shot. I mean, he can always create that shot for himself, so he tends to over-rely on it a little bit. His defense, has been a limiting factor too. He's admitted that, the first time he played Chris Paul, he had no idea what he was in for, and it showed. I mean, he was getting spun around, and, everybody does. So that's just something I think is going to come with more experience. I think he's improved over the course of the season. I expect that, improvement arc to continue, especially if they can bring down his minutes just a little bit going forward into future years. One major plus for him has been durability. At the beginning of the season, he talked about being concerned he was going to be able to make it through the season because he's never played, at the NBA level because, he's coming from such a big jump from the mid-majors to the NBA. He hasn't missed a single game this season. I mean, the most he's had is like a slightly tweaked ankle that he played through. I mean, that's a great sign, I think, going forward for his development is the fact that he's been able to stay on the court. One thing he actually mentioned to me in an interview at All-Star Weekend, I was kind of talking to him. Dion Waiters basically started salivating like Zach, towards bacon when I was asking him about Damian Lillard because he's like, this guy's got the car keys, man. He can do whatever he wants. He's got as many minutes as he can handle. And he's got as many touches as he could possibly handle. This is the greatest situation ever. You could just see Dion Waiters' eyes just popping like that. Like he was just so excited. And I asked Damian about that, and he just kind of chuckled. He's like, yeah, guys have been telling me that. I get that. But he also said, I've got to do a better job with that. I've got to expand my game in some of the ways I was talking about earlier. One thing he mentioned finally was just his mid-range game. He wants to be able to get into the floaters, the runners, some of the stuff where you're maybe not settling for that 15-foot jumper, but you're getting a little bit deeper into the paint and making the most of it, getting a little bit higher quality looks. So that's what he said he's going to be focusing on down the stretch. And then going forward into the summer, he says he's going to spend a lot of his development time not working on his straightforward jumpers as much, but floaters off the dribble, floaters after he splits a pick and roll, or after he turns the corner. How does he get a good shot that maybe is a little bit closer to the basket?
Nice. That is a thorough breakdown of what Damian Lillard has to look forward to in the next few years.
I could go on forever.
Thanks a lot for coming on, man. That was awesome.
All right, guys. Take care now.
Bye, Ben. All right, well, we are at 4 o'clock. We're at the end of our 100th episode. I hope that you feel we kept it 100. We're going to go to Dagger Smash Noted. My dagger is for people who try to disparage professional athletes by saying that he's just an athlete. That's the job. He is a pro athlete. He is professionally athletic. And if there's an NBA player who is defined by his athleticism, especially a young player, that's such a good sign, because it's very rare that a player can take his athleticism and impose it on the game to the point where you say, oh my God, like, yes, this guy is an incredible athlete, but like he's only doing a few things. Like, we kind of did this with LeBron, we did this with Blake, I think we're going to do it with Drummond. Now you see the footwork that Blake has learned and all this other stuff, and he still has the athleticism, but that other stuff has come with it, and you can't teach the deceptiveness, the balance, those sorts of things. And so my dagger is for people who say that. You're really complimenting people who are professionally athletic.
I completely agree with that. That's an excellent point. My smash, I talked about it on the Ion Basketball podcast, which you can subscribe to on iTunes and leave a 5-star review if you so felt inclined. I talked about it on Twitter, but I want to hammer this point home on as many platforms as I have. James White was unimpressive at the dunk contest overall in terms of he didn't win it. He didn't get to the finals. He windmilled a free throw line dunk. He didn't make it. He missed it long. He jumped from the free throw line. He did a windmill, and he hit back iron and missed it. That is the most impressive thing I've ever seen in a dunk contest. That is ridiculous. Think about jumping 15 feet to reach a 10-foot high object, doing a windmill dunk, and being too long on it. You had too much air on the jump. That's absurd, and we need to recognize that while he didn't win the dunk contest and he didn't do a good job in the dunk contest, he still impressed us.
All right. Yeah, I think that's all we will be doing is thinking about that, because that is an experience that none of us will ever have. Peepin' James, thank you for getting us through 100 episodes. Give us your note.
My note on our 100th episode is not even really a note at all. It's a picture that I want to share.
Yeah.
It was brought to you by Matt Moore on Twitter. Apparently it was made by a CBS video producer. And I'm not even going to waste my words here.
No, let it speak for itself. That's me. That's me at San Diego State. Real picture.
For those of you listening on the iTunes podcast, you're missing out. You really have to go to the end of the video one to see this thing.
Yeah, it's Zach Harper in all his glory. Thank you very much, James, for bringing that to our attention. Thank you to everyone who watched. Thank you to Zach Lowe and Ben Golliver. It's been a very fun 100 episodes, and we will keep going Thursday up in the air. But keep your eye out. We're going to be a lot of trade deadline shenanigans, hopefully. So thanks a lot, and we will catch you next time. Bye, Zach.
Bye, Beckley.
I taught my bird to whistle like a referee. I can make a free throw when I'm down on one knee. I've been a fan of basketball since I was 5. Now I am a fan of HoopSpeak Live. Hilarious analysis, a mystifying trope. An angel with a cudgel breaking bubbles of soap. Like honeybees buzzing around a hive. Everybody buzzing about HoopSpeak Live.